Welcome back to the Late Night Chats podcast with the Clugstons. I'm Jared.
And I'm Audrey. Thank you so much for joining us today.
All right, so let's dive in today. First of all, we're going to start off with some highlights of our day. What's a highlight of your day?
So far, the highlight has been you not needing to go to work.
Mm,
We're on the weekend, and it's so nice that you can be here and help me parent Magnolia. We've had a rough week.
yes, we
She
have.
has been teething, and um, yeah, so learning curve for me, and I'm just glad you can help me.
Lack of sleep for us all.
Mm-hmm.
My highlight this morning has been sitting here on the couch and holding Magnolia and snuggling her and watching her start to see things out of the window. That's a lot of fun.
Oh yeah,
See that happen and her become aware and observe things.
that's sweet.
So, yeah. Well, what topic do we have for people today?
So today we're gonna do a dive into the subject of scrupulosity. Um, if you do not know what scrupulosity is, it is a spiritual OCD that comes from the word scruples,
Hmm.
and maybe you know more about that.
Scruples, like our belief systems are, you know, s- okay, having scruples means we're going to return a $20 bill that fell out of someone's wallet, right? So because of our scruples, we give that back, or our belief systems, uh, down that line.
So could morals be another word for scruples?
I think so. I should have looked up in the dictionary, but yeah, morals would definitely do that, or be
Okay.
that, same thing.
Mm-hmm.
Our morals. So it's like OCD, but then based around our morals. It actually started back in like the Reformation time, or even maybe even before that. Like I'm thinking the 1500s, where there's Catholic monks in the monasteries were observed mumbling and repeating like this repetition of things that they were mumbling over and over and over, and that they believe that's kind of where it started. So basically, how it plays out then in someone's life is that it's a lot of intrusive thoughts. So that's the OCD part. And then it's thoughts like it could be worrying about blaspheming the Holy Spirit. It could be
Mm-hmm.
worrying about being proud. And let's say you have a gift and you're practicing that, and then you have these intrusive thoughts coming in saying you're just being proud, you're just doing this because someone you want people to see you, like that could be it. Be a lot of things like that.
Could it be lying, like you're terrified of telling a lie? And so if somebody asks you, "Hey, what time is it?" It's 8:28, but you would not say it's 8:30. You would say it's 8:28 because you don't want to lie. Or another example, you package your words with like I think or maybe
hmm
because you don't want to state a fact because what if you're wrong and then you would be lying and then you have to apologize.
yeah,
And so everything you say goes through this filter of what if I'm lying?
just huge bondage. A lot of where this comes from is because we both have experienced it,
Yes.
deal with it. Um, Maybe not quite to the same extent as our younger days, but for sure something I still deal with for sure.
Mhm. Yeah, this subject is very close to our hearts
Hmm.
because we have dealt with it. We've had people in our lives that deal with it, and it can feel so hopeless,
Hmm.
and you can feel set apart and weird, like I'm the only one that struggles
Hmm.
with it. So when I was 12, 13, 14, those were some years where I struggled with it pretty intensely.
Hmm.
And there was this one time where we had some friends from far away come and visit us, and it was such a joyous time. Like these friends never came, and we had looked forward to it for so long, and we were so excited to have them there. And my family, like the youth in our family and the youth in their family, went to play volleyball in the evening. It was dark, and we were playing outside. And as we were playing, I happened to look up and glance at the moon. And the moon was one of those crescent, just slivers of a moon but it was red.
Ooh. Mm-hmm.
And my mind automatically went to the verse in the Bible that says the moon is going to turn to blood before Jesus comes back, or
Mm-hmm.
forget how it says that. And the whole night, I could not forget that.
Mm-hmm.
I just kept seeing in my mind this red moon, and it just made a heavy weight in the pit of my stomach, and I could not enjoy my evening. I was playing volleyball, but I just knew that at any moment Jesus could come back, and I was
Mm-hmm.
terrified.
Wow.
Really
So it just
terrified.
like kept coming back, and just that fear then that comes with
Yeah.
that. Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's real. I think for me, some of the earliest, and maybe this is more on the OCD side, but it leads into the scrupulosity, is playing piano, practicing piano, and feeling like these just intrusive thoughts coming in. Again, that's why I shared that earlier, is
Hmm.
like you're proud, you just want people to see you play, you just want, and like all these things. It's like, no, God, like I don't, this is for you, like I want to honor and glorify you with this. And of course, like I may have just even become a Christian. Like I was all for God, right? And so that
Hmm.
was the first thing. Um,
Would that make you stop playing piano? Would you walk away from the piano because you couldn't stop thinking that you were proud?
that's a good question. I do think I would say I would have quit early and just got up and left just because I couldn't deal with it. Like it's just too much.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, so that was kind of the earlier on for me. And then later on, I was just reading some verses about blaspheming the Holy Spirit.
Oh, that's a big one.
Yeah, ugh. And and so then obviously those intrusive thoughts just, bad words towards God, to His Spirit,
Hmm.
and all this just start
Hmm.
coming in. It's like, that's not me. Like, that's not even who my heart is.
Yeah.
But it actually became so debilitating that my grades dropped in school. I was in high
Hmm.
school at that point. And, like, so what you want to do naturally is when those things come, you want to fight them.
Yes.
And so I'm sitting there like trying to pray under my breath because this is going around school. That's great. I was individualized, put my head down. But what about in public with the youth? Like I'm sitting there like trying
Hmm.
not to move my lips, but like pray like God, not that. Like I don't mean that thought. And like there's just like
You
that.
felt like you had to tell God, I did not mean that thought. That
Hmm.
thought was not mine. And you had to say that,
Yeah.
or else you were condemned. And maybe
Right.
God would think you had thought it.
Right. Or that I had then blasphemed the Spirit and no more hope.
Oh, yes.
And like that's not who I was.
Right.
And like I actually became depressed and everything over like if you talk to my parents, it was some dark days for them too. It was terrible.
I feel like the blaspheming the Holy Spirit one is a very common
Oh yeah.
theme because of that verse in the Bible. It just sets you on edge. It makes you fear.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not even what blaspheming the Holy Spirit
Mm-mm.
is.
Mm-mm.
And maybe we don't have enough teaching, and maybe it's just a mystery of like what actually is blaspheming the Holy Spirit, but that's not it.
Mm-mm.
And so, as a child of God, we don't have to fear. So, what would you say are some tips that you have found that help with dealing with scrupulosity? Because you said not to fight it.
Mm-hmm.
So, what are some tips that you can use?
Yeah. And sometimes I wonder if I even have good answers for this because like backing up just a little bit, nobody in my church or anyone knew anything about this.
Okay.
And so it wasn't until several years ago, sitting actually at Life Ministries in Conestoga, PA, singing with my counselor, and I was like, "Hey, by the way, like, so it's obviously it's past the debilitating stage. I still deal with it, but not to that extent.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, I have this thing that I'm dealing with or have dealt with in the past, especially. Here's what it is." And he's like, "That sounds like scrupulosity." I'm like, "Oh, this has a name."
What did that do for you to know that it had a name?
Well, like you're not alone in this. Like other people have
Yes.
experienced this. Someone knows me. Someone knows about this.
Yes.
And maybe there's like maybe I can learn about this and at least be curious and learn about what it was like.
I'm not a weirdo.
Because while it is true that we don't have to fear, we don't have to fight it, telling someone who's in the middle of scrupulosity, they're thinking, yeah, well, you just don't understand because this is so debilitating.
Mm.
So when you're in that moment, you want to talk back to it, you want to stop it, you want to fight it. But that's almost like scratching an itch. Like the more you scratch the itchier it gets,
Mm.
and the more you just go into this circular thing. Because scrupulosity really, and OCD, is a brain problem. Like there's something physically
Yes.
in your brain not turning off, where you have someone has a person without scrupulosity has a weird thought, and they're like, "Oh, that was weird," and they keep moving on. But
Mm-hmm.
our brains just continue bringing that back, and then condemning us, and even to the point with scrupulosity where you think, "Oh, this is like this fight between good and evil. Like the devil's after me. Everything's the devil." And I remember my dad telling me one time, like, "Hey, this might not actually be the devil. Like we don't know, and it's easy to blame things, and maybe he's using it." It may not be that, which was, yeah, I think some good insight. Because then, if it's a brain problem, it's like, oh, okay, so something's wrong here. Like, this isn't normal.
Right. So sometimes we want to say, like you said, Satan versus God,
Mm-hmm.
but it's not. The enemy can use scrupulosity to still kill and destroy, but it's not the enemy. It it's thoughts that come.
Mm-hmm.
And there is hope.
Mm-hmm.
There are tools that you can have to help you
Mm-hmm.
work through these thoughts.
Mm-hmm. So moving into like, what are some things to do or not do? I think it's important to, as much as possible, not scratch the itch, and what that might look like is just naming that thing. Like, okay, I'm
Hmm.
just gonna name this Johnny. And so like, oh, that's Johnny. Push him out.
Those types of thoughts you're gonna name Johnny.
Yeah, we're just gonna name him Johnny. Um, and so every time Johnny comes in, we know, oh, that's just Johnny. He's not being good right now. Push him out.
That's Johnny speaking those thoughts.
Yeah, it's not Jared, it's Johnny.
Mm-hmm.
And so it kind of sounds funny, but it kind of puts a name to it of like, this is this thing, this is Johnny coming and intruding, and he's being very disrespectful to me right now, and I don't have to put up with Johnny. Like,
Mm-hmm.
it's like, no, go away.
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe you want to name it something else, like a
Mm-hmm.
thing versus a name,
So,
but put a name to it so you kind of visualize this is this person or this is this thing, and it doesn't belong in my mind.
mm-hmm.
And then pass it out, pass it
Mm-hmm.
off. And at first, it might just be a lot of that. Like, no, like it can seem second by second by second to get these thoughts out. But
Wow.
like, so I think another thing that helped me was becoming busy with my hands.
Okay. So pushing the thought out and then moving on.
Yeah, moving on, filling it with something different.
I see.
Like I don't know if overloading your brain is the right thing, but I remember we would at Sherman Bible Institute, the board members would cook once or twice weekends throughout the year. And my dad was on the board, and so we would go out there, and I love cooking. And so I remember just getting into that, and that helped. Like I could go, even in those debilitating years, I could go almost a whole day and be like, hey, I haven't even worried about this for like most of the
Hmm.
day. So busy.
Mm-hmm.
I think claiming promises that, we are saved, our salvation is secure.
Mm-hmm.
God's not going to get rid of us. When we confess that Jesus is the Son of God,
Mm-hmm.
God is in us and we are in Him. Those types of things can bring a lot of peace or um, hope, I guess,
Mm-hmm.
in that.
So another thing I heard along the same lines of giving it a name
Mm-hmm.
is picture a conveyor belt
Mm-hmm.
at a grocery store, and all these groceries are coming down this conveyor belt,
Mm-hmm.
and the groceries you want to put in a bag,
Mm-hmm.
you want to keep. But then every once in a while, there's trash in the midst. And so if you think about this as your thoughts, like
Mm-hmm.
good thoughts coming in, like all kinds of thoughts are coming into your brain. So you can keep the good ones,
Mm-hmm.
but then the ones that are trash, the ones that you did not think, you did not even want to be there, you don't have to fight them. You can just let them go down a chute into the trash can. Just let them just pass by. You don't have to think through it. You don't have to freak out like this thought just came in. No, just let it go
Hmm.
and move on.
That's so powerful because I think it's important to know that these are not our thoughts.
Yes.
We're not agreeing with them by the fact that they're entering our minds. That
Mm-hmm.
does not mean that we are agreeing with them. I like what you said about the conveyor belt. We just like, hey, that doesn't belong here. That I think
Mm-hmm.
that's where I was going with the naming thing of like,
Mm-hmm.
you see this thoughts coming in, look, off the conveyor
Mm-hmm.
belt it goes. It doesn't even need to be pondered because you know and God knows that that's not you.
Yeah.
Wow,
Yeah.
that's good.
So these are things you can do for yourself, but as you watch someone you love, a sibling, maybe you're a parent to a child that has scrupulosity, maybe one of your close friends has scrupulosity. What are some things looking on that you can do if someone you love is dealing with this?
First of all, being aware, like if you've never heard of this before, go read up on it because good chance you actually know someone who's dealing with this.
Mm-hmm.
Because they may not have good words for them, and talking about it triggers it sometimes.
Yes.
And so if you know about it, then you can be like, hey, maybe put some words to it for them or help them find some words that's good and just helping them name it and giving words to it and just that it's there, like it's okay, like you're dealing with this, like not a freak out moment.
Mm-hmm. Normalize it. You're
Yes,
not the only
yes,
one that has this.
yes.
This is a thing.
Mm-hmm,
Other people deal with it. And show them some tools of how to deal with it.
mm-hmm,
I think especially as a parent to a child or as an older sibling to a younger sibling, keep your voice calm,
mm-hmm,
matter of fact.
mm-hmm.
Don't get all embarrassed about them. Often people with scrupulosity or OCD, they deal with some social quirks that might look kind of weird when you go out in public and people
Mm-hmm.
might not understand them. It is a thing that can be worked with, and there are tools that can help.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And so like some of the social quirks could be okay, mumbling. Like it's really easy if you don't have this to go up and be like, why are they doing that? It makes no
Mhm.
sense. Like, why are they doing that? But instead of being that way and going up to them like, what are you saying? What are you doing? Why are you this way? Like, that doesn't help.
Mhm.
But what does help is if you can just be okay and accept them that
Mhm.
they're this way. Like if you don't have the tools to help them, just be supportive and realize, oh,
Mhm.
these people are going through something. It's big to them. I don't get it, but I'm gonna be there for them.
Mhm. And it's not their whole identity. There's
Yes,
so much
no.
more that they are other than their OCD and scrupulosity. They have talents and gifts and dignity and potential that's far beyond
Mm-hmm.
this thing. And while in the moment it feels like this is all they can think about and what they're dealing with, that's not all who they are.
No, it's not. You know, I look back, think about myself as the mumbler, and then because I don't want to mumble, I would start making these clicking sounds in my throat. And I still have those muscle memories actually.
Mhm.
And so all of a sudden you're the weird kid with the clicks in the throat and the mumbling, like,
Hmm.
but that's not who I was. I was dealing with something. And so I think being kind to those people. Like
Mhm.
kindness is so big and goes such a long way because if you feel so marginalized and by yourself that
Mhm.
if when someone actually cares, like you know that they're in your corner.
Mhm. And something not to do would be to say, just stop it.
Yes,
Get over it.
yes, not a
Why
good
can
thing.
you not get over this? Just stop.
Mhm.
Stop doing this. Because then it just heightens it. It just makes
Yeah,
it worse. Because then you're trying to stop on top of trying to deal with all the thoughts and
Lord knows you've been trying to stop all day long.
exactly.
And don't address it in public.
Mm-hmm.
That just brings the lights. When lights and everything comes shining in on us, everyone's watching. You're in that moment by yourself. Everyone's like, "What's up?"
Hmm.
Like, oh, it's through the roof.
You feel like that is your identity. You feel like
Mm-hmm.
I am this weirdo.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
And like, if you could just give it away and just stop it just like that, you would. No one wants it.
Absolutely. Would it help, do you think, if you would, as a parent or as a sibling, just ask? If you know that they're dealing with it, it is a thing for them. So maybe acknowledging it.
Mm-hmm.
So, how is your OCD today?
Yes. Not just letting them by themselves, but ask them in a calm
Mm-hmm.
voice like that, like it's normal.
Mm-hmm.
Because it is. Like, it does happen to a lot of people,
Mm-hmm.
especially in a, like, it's noticed in almost every religion, whether it's a true religion or not. Like, it's something that's there within their religion specific.
Because we're talking about the scrupulosity is a spiritual OCD, and
Right.
so that's why you're saying it's connected to religion, is
Mm-hmm.
because scrupulosity is the religious part of the OCD.
Yeah. And so if there's any form of legalism, like that's even, I mean, it's kind of based on legalism in a lot of ways because it's just like your mind spinning it up into that. To wrap it up, there's so much we could unpack here. There's so much more we could talk about. We could dive into our stories more. But I think we'll let it there. If you're someone who is struggling with scrupulosity, OCD, I encourage you to find help. There is help. You're not alone. You're not the only one. And it's okay. And it's okay that you're struggling with this. But there's places like Life Counseling Ministries in Conestoga, PA. That's a great resource. They have people who are aware of this and can help. I'm sure there's other places. And even research it as you can. If you're out of the debilitating stage but you still deal with it, research it, learn more. There's also a resource I'll have that I'll leave in the show notes, a link to go find it. It's a article about this. It's really good, has a lot of good stuff. It's what if you're someone who is around someone that you know that they're dealing with this? How can you support them?
I say normalize it.
Yes.
Speak to them in a calm voice and maybe even ask them how it's going for them. Um, if you are a parent or a sibling or someone close to you is struggling with this, learn about it yourself, study into it, see what all is actually going on. That way you can help them in a knowledgeable way.
That's all that we have for you today. Go learn about this, support people, love people, be kind. Have a great day.